All right, we're going to get going here. So hello, good evening. Thank you so much for being with us here at the 92nd Street Y. My name is Katira Kapoor, and I have the privilege of being the Senior Director of Health Promotion, Wellness, and the Spark Your Health Talk series here at the 92nd Street Y. You are in for a treat this evening, as we are thrilled to be screening Elise Harris's first documentary film, Your Roots Are Showing, yes. Followed by a panel discussion with filmmaker Elise Harris, founder of Silvering Beauty, Alexis Zizinas, and naturopath for Pure Essentials, Melissa Crispell, so that we may dive deeper into the concept of what is beautiful. You are all invited to consider this movement as a stepping stone toward a more inclusive, healthier, and happier place of self-acceptance. I would like to thank our sponsors for tonight's Spark Your Health Talk, Pure Essentials and Silvering Beauty. Thank you so much. As well as Joe Colella and Giselle Heitzner. We very much appreciate your support in making this event happen. Pure Essentials is a women-led small business where everyone is personally invested in radically disrupting and redefining the supplement industry for good. Their mission is to protect the nutrients extracted from the soil so they are delivered to you in their purest form. From the purity of their formulations to the cleanliness of their machines, we won't let anything get in the way of the integrity of the nutrients you are buying. Silvering is a prestige beauty brand built specifically for women with silver, gray, and white hair. Through the existence of Silvering and the Silvering Sage app Inc., Alexis confirms that choosing to silver is a valid beauty choice, supported by product innovation, digital tools, and a connected community. And again, thank you to Joe Colella and Giselle Heitzner for your support. We hope you will be able to join us for upcoming Spark Your Health events. This is a virtual coming up on July 16th, The Future of Neurodivergence in Leadership with 92nd Street Y's Women in Power in collaboration with Spark Your Health. And I am now pleased to have you view Your Roots Are Showing by Elise Harris. Enjoy. We will see you back for the panel discussion immediately following the film. And I've been told to hang out for the credits part because there might be something at the end that you'll want to see. Thank you. Enjoy.
I'm Jennifer Marecki Alvarez, Director of Life Safety and Compliance Program Administration and part of the Spark Your Health Talk series here at the 92nd Street Y. We are excited to now move on into our panel discussion portion of our evening with filmmaker Elise Harris in conversation with Alexis Zizinas. Asianist. There we go. Melissa Crispell and Katira Kapoor. Please hold questions until the Q&A during the last 15 minutes when the speakers will call on audience members. I'm now pleased to introduce our panelists. Joining us is Elise Harris. Based in the New York area, Elise is a seasoned international makeup and hair artist with a diverse clientele, which has included celebrities, fashion and beauty brands, corporations, indie films, brides, and private clients seeking to look their best. She has contributed to iconic editorial advertising, campaigns, and beauty magazines. For over 45 years, her career has afforded her the opportunity to work closely with high-profile personalities like Vogue's Anna Wintour, Mia Farrow, Liza Minnelli, Paulina, and Brooke Shields. Your Roots Are Showing marks Harris's debut as a documentary filmmaker. And joining Elise is Alexis Zizinas, the founder and CEO of Silvering, a prestige beauty brand built specifically for women with silver, gray, and white hair. With over 30 years of experience in the beauty industry as a former model, creative director, and global brand strategist, she brings deep expertise in designing products and platforms that meet the real, unmet needs of grown-up women. Through Silvering, Alexis is helping to shift the narrative around naturally silvering hair, bringing it into the beauty space with clean, effective products that work with the structure and tone of real hair. And joining the stage is Melissa Crispell. Melissa Crispell is president of Pure Essentials, a women-led therapeutic-grade clean supplement company. As a naturopath, nutrition professional, and wellness activist, Melissa's mission is to expose the dirty secrets of the supplements industry so that people know what to look for on the label when they're deciding what to put into their bodies. Pure Essentials is a women-led and operated ambitious startup dedicated to disrupting and redefining the supplement industry for good. And lastly, but not least, Katira Kapoor has been an integral leader in 92NY's Athletics, Health, and Wellness Department for 13 years. She's the founder of 92NY Spark Your Health, a health and wellness initiative which provides cutting-edge health-related talks and programs to thousands of people all over the country and world. Her mission is to connect children and adults to physical movement in a positive and joyful manner so it becomes a lifelong habit. Welcome, everyone.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you for watching the film. I loved seeing some laughter in the room. It feels like there's a levity in the air right now, so I'm really excited to dive into this conversation. And I have a feeling we have a really good audience that's going to have really good questions, so we'll make sure we save some time for that. So, Elise, I want to start with you, and then, of course, we'll open it up to everyone. But why is it important, and why is now the time to be having a conversation about how we perceive beauty? And why do you think you're one of the first people really talking about this right now? Why has this not happened before?
Okay. Is this on? Okay. First of all, I don't think we're just starting to talk about this. I think humans have always talked about beautiful and what's beautiful in the moment and in the time that they live in. So I think it's important to revisit the issue and see how it reflects what's really going on in the culture and what parts of that are actually positive and what parts of that are not so positive. In this particular moment, I have to say that we've seen a lot of progress in terms of people living out who they really are and being authentic. But I think we're also living in a time where people are kind of being forced to pull back from being who they really are. So I think it's important, not just for the individual, but for the others. Who is the other? You know, that's going to change month to month. But if we want to support everyone, then we all have to live authentically. So how we look and how we show up matters, especially when we are forced to be not diverse, when diversity becomes a bad word.
Can I pick up on that? I think it's very interesting that that hair color through the lens of beauty and health is something that you're bringing up in this kind of combination of Spark Your Health and the film your roots are showing. I think talking about beauty and yourself and the naturalness of beauty. I'm kind of rambling on, and I feel like I should stop because I'm having a menopause moment. Carry on.
Okay, and I'll pick up right there.
Please.
I think we're in a time where everyone is looking for truth. They're looking for transparency. We're seeing that in our industry, the wellness side, not just the beauty side, and I think that's why what we're talking about is so complementary, because people are looking for the truth, and they're looking for natural, and they're looking for those natural solutions. And where, when we're cutting budget in the house, what's the first thing to go? Haircuts, right? Hair dye, hair time at the salon. But, how can we do it in a different way so that we can honor both who we are in that moment and who we're going to become when we let this color change to the next phase?
So what is silvering versus going gray? And what do you think that means, in society at large?
I'm happy to take that one. I think words really matter. I think the idea of going gray and commenting on somebody going gray, there's an implication of fading. There's an implication of disappearing And the reality is that anybody who has let their hair silver, you know how great it feels, and you know that it's an increase in value, and that's what growing up is.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, to move on with the silvering thing, yeah, because gray has connotations that are negative. It's not a bad color, it's just a color like any other. But the silvering movement, the gray hair acceptance movement, pretty much pioneered by these ladies called Silver Sisters, they've chosen silver because they want to shine. They want to shine a different light on the subject. And so that it just becomes a good choice, one choice, not the only choice. But for too long, women didn't feel they had a choice. They had to cover their gray. So, you know, I hope it came across in the film that it's okay to cover your gray. You should do that if it feels good to you. But you shouldn't do that if it doesn't feel good. If you think you're doing something because you are forced to hide and you are forced to kind of reject the idea of getting older, which, what are the options really? So if you can get older and feel good about the things you're going to get from getting older and not just lament the things that are going to fade into your rearview mirror, well then silvering is actually kind of great. And I'll just finish one thing. One of the things that surprised me, I thought I knew everything about gray hair until I heard from all these women around the world, and the number of teenagers who see their gray hair and they've barely managed the idea that they've got breasts and a period and now they have gray hair, you know, it's traumatic to start to hide so early in life. So what if these young ladies, 15, 16, 17, 12, could say, hey, wow, I'm going to be an adult, and isn't that cool? And what if gray hair, silver, meant maturity in a good way? Well, that would change a lot for young people.
Mine's called Platinum Sparkle.
Yeah.
I think there's also something about words, again, the importance of words. You know, we say older and younger, but older and younger than what? Like, what is woman's age that we're older or younger than? And I believe that, you know, biologically it's this idea of a woman in her procreative life time. And the idea of trying to freeze ourselves there feels really broken. And that we don't have a place for growing up. Like, what do we call that kind of beauty? You know, we have pretty girls, you know, we have cute girls, we have beautiful women, and then women grow up and they grow past their reproductive age. Like, the average age that a woman silvers is 35. Like, that's the average, you know, and that's not what you think, because women cover their grays for so long, and are encouraged to. So I think there's just, again, thinking about words and like, what do the words mean? And, you know, if this documentary does nothing else, maybe it'll just ask you why you do it and why you don't. I think for those of us who, we know why we don't, because it feels amazing, but.
Yes. Well, because you've all touched upon societal pressures, maybe we could talk a little bit about role modeling or lack of role modeling, and what does that mean in the silvering movement? So this is to everyone.
I can take that one. I'll start that because my mom silvered. She silvered in the 80s, and it was really one of these things that was really great to see. She had shoulder pads and big hair, and, you know, she looked fab, you know. So when my hair started changing color, I knew that it was going to be fine, and it was going to look great. And I think there's something about being aware, if you do have children, being aware of what you are showing your children. You know, there's this idea of body positivity. You know, we talk about it, but, you know, what's included in that? What was it, the teenager, the tweens at Sephora, you know, and it was like, what is happening? And it's like, well, who are they seeing? You know, who's role modeling for them? It's not just advertising.
Yeah. It's important, the role model piece, which is why specifically, you know, I looked for diversity in a lot of ways, but I really looked for some younger women to be in the film so that whoever saw it could say, oh, look at that. You know, that's what silver hair looks like on a young woman, because most of us haven't seen it. And that was a true story when my 6-year-old really looked at me very concerned and asked me if I was going to die soon. And I really said, why are you worried about that? And she said, because you have gray hair. And I knew, oh my God, she hasn't seen gray hair on an adult unless they're really elderly. And I thought, well, that's a terrible thing. So I'm just going to keep growing these, and I'm going to just take the heat from the world. And I did. I really, I took a lot of heat.
It's also a trope because it starts when kids are really young, and you're reading storybooks to your kids, and it's a very easy illustration to reach for, like, oh, how do you illustrate a young woman, a mother, and then an old woman, and an old woman, knock her over, give her a cane, white hair, right? And that's just like, that's the trope that's reached for because it's easy and uncomplicated, but it's not true. Like, it's just 35. It's not true. Yeah.
All right, so let's shift a little bit and talk about, sort of picking your poison. And it can be easy to pick your poison when you're not really aware of what the risks are and what's maybe happening to the environment around you and what the alternatives may be, because not everyone is at a time where they're ready to give up dyeing their hair. So Melissa, maybe you could speak a little bit about the risks and the alternatives.
Sure. I love talking about the risks. That's the fun stuff, right? So as I was preparing for this panel, because I'm not an expert in hair dye, I am not a hairstylist, I'm a naturopath, I started looking at the stats. And what does the hair dye do to our body? Well, first of all, our skin is the absolute largest organ that we have. And so when we're putting hair dye directly on our scalp, we are just bathing in it, we're soaking in it, we're marinating in it, and I don't know how long people sit there with that stuff. Is it 20 minutes? Is it 45 minutes? I don't know. And then they sit with the hair dryer over top to heat it up and get that stuff really in there. That's not good for us. It's not good for us at all. I can tell you that I also learned that the PPD that you mentioned in the film and a few other chemicals, and the darker you go, the heavier these chemicals are. They do not pass the breakdown process in the waste treatment plants. They bypass it. So wherever that water is flowing, after it's been cleaned, probably back into your faucet, into the river, into the lakes, into the ocean, it's going out into everywhere. So it's not just your choice anymore, it's everybody's choice. And it's the fish and the frogs and all of the little buddies that are getting it. So, I hope that we do it responsibly, but those are some of the risks. It's not just us, it's everyone on the planet, and it's Mother Earth that's also suffering from that.
Anything else to add?
Well, that's sobering.
I mean, how do we talk more about that? I don't know that that's common knowledge out there.
But there's a halfway mark,
Sure.
And I just want to mention, because I'm not like everybody has to quit the dye, it would be unsettling to the society. But one can really moderate and still look pretty great. Gray blending is the latest art form in the hair color world. And that means just little pieces, some highlights, some lowlights, you mix it up, and you can still not have to do the skunk, and you can just kind of adapt, because it's a whole person adaptation. Growing out your hair is not just about hair. I mean, and everybody knows it, because if anybody says, don't worry, it's just hair, that's like telling someone who's hysterical they should calm down, because there's no such thing. It's just hair. Hair is everything. It is everything. So,
and there's more that you can do. It's not the end of the world if you are dyeing your hair. We look at the whole body. We look at the toxic load, the cumulative load. If this is one little teeny tiny piece of what makes up you, and you are, sleeping well, you're eating well, you're taking your supplements to fill in the gaps, you're exercising, you're laughing, you're joking, you're playing with the kids, running around, having a fulfilling life, your body is going to be able to detox from this. So those that choose to continue to color, it is not the end of the world. And please believe me, I am not the one to say, don't go color your hair. Do what makes you feel good. You're the one that has to look in the mirror and be happy with what you see.
And I'm going to jump in there as a, I did found a business, and it's a beauty business for women, and it amplifies with cosmetics and hair care products that amplify the beauty of silvering hair. Elevator pitch. Not very good at it.
I can do it.
Do this.
Right. I can do it for you.
No. But the point is, there are beauty products for women who color their hair, and for the longest time, I mean, this is why I chose to get involved with the documentary with Elise, is because we both saw something and decided to do something about it. She saw a movement of change and decided she was going to capture that moment and record it. And for my part, I saw a market of women who weren't being served, and I was part of that market. I mean, there's a lot more that we need than purple shampoo. There's we need care and beautiful products and products that work on our hair. And I really believe that just by having a product line, and Angel, I see you. Angel also has a product line, beautiful shampoos, that it validates for women that it is a beautiful choice. And it's a choice, just to go back onto that.
Yes. All right, so Melissa, back to you. There are physical, chemical, and emotional components to our health and our wellness. And when these are out of alignment, we can experience symptoms. So wondering if you can talk a little bit more about the impact that hair dye can have on our bodies.
Sure. So we do have those three components. If you can visualize a stool, a three-legged stool, we have the emotional side, we have the chemical side, we have the physical side. And we have to maintain all of those sections in the things that I was just mentioning: sleeping well, eating well, drinking clean water, having a fulfilling life. They all fall into those categories. I had a client many, many years ago, and this is answering your question of how chemicals can affect the body and affect that alignment. She was a hairdresser. She dyed her hair red at the time. She had a little boy, and he was just under 2 years old. He was diagnosed as autistic. He went to all of the major medical facilities, and as it happens in natural health, someone talks to somebody in a grocery store and says, so-and-so helped my daughter do this, and someone's helped my son and my cousin's brother and whatever do this. And so that's how she came to me. And she said, I need you to help my son. And I said, well, I can't cure this one. I can't cure anything. I don't exactly know what to do. Let's start with inflammation. Let's just reduce the inflammation. So I did food sensitivity test on her. When the child is 2 or less, you typically do test the mother and then apply the results to the child. So that's what I did. She came back reactive to all the things you might guess at: chemicals that were in the salon, things she was breathing, actual colors, because she refused to wear gloves. So every color that she was putting in someone else's hair, she was then exposing herself to. So we applied those results to her little buddy. And within 8 weeks of reducing this inflammation by avoiding these items that she was reactive to, we stopped the chronic exposure, because he was also reactive to some things, or she was reactive, to some things that her husband was bringing in. He was an HVAC guy. She was reactive to a glue and a dye in the glue in the PVC piping that he used. So it was on his uniform when he came home, so they had to start stripping him down in the garage and dumping his clothes in the wash before he could even come in to play with their little boy on the carpet. But within 6 to 8 weeks of eliminating these exposures and going through a supported detoxification process, this little autistic boy was stringing 2 and 4 and 6 words together. Every couple of weeks, he was adding more to it. She came back to me with her husband at the 8-week mark and said, my husband thought you were a quack. And I said, well, I probably am. That's okay. That's not up for debate. But he thanked me, tears in this man's eyes, that his son was running up to him and hugging him. But this is the cumulative toxic load, and this is the effect that dyes and toxins have on our body, and how we can pass them to our little ones.
What a powerful example. So, Alexis, let's talk about why should we be aspiring up in our beauty and our healthcare routines, if that example wasn't enough.
Right. This goes back to the idea of aging and of trying to freeze ourselves in an amber of time. Once you pass 35, and the media says, you know, look back at your 20s and 30s and kind of this is what you want to aspire to be. We don't go backwards, like we don't age backwards. And B, like who wants to go back there? You know, like do you remember, like, and everybody, and I ask especially young people, I'm like, do you remember how it felt when you were 16 and you were just paranoid and everything was awful? And then, and you know, everybody goes, yeah, that was terrible. And then when you were 20, you know, you're like, oh, so much better, but still paranoid. And then as you go on, and any woman in this room who is, you know, past 20, knows that like every 10 years, it's like we're peeling another onion layer, you know, and getting closer and closer to who we're supposed to be. And for me, silvering hair, you know, represents this aging, you know, represents this passage of time. And, you know, you've heard the term, you know, I've earned every one of these. It's like, yeah, you know, we have earned every one of these. And I feel like younger women, and I know you can't talk to younger women, it's like talking to kids, and they're like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. But please, like, it gets better, and everything gets better, and that confidence grows, you know, and that's something to aspire to, especially for young women. But how do you tell them?
Through documentaries.
Through documentaries.
Yeah, but there's also another piece, a little piece that if people cover their gray for decades, I find it a little disconcerting to think that maybe you don't really know what you look like. And then have to kind of have that reality check if you choose to check. So, having really not done that myself, I found it really fascinating. I was like, oh, this is different now. I had mouse brown for so long, and now I have this other thing. And the patterning that I see when I see younger women silver all the way through, it's like, these are interesting patterns. Everyone is so unique. I know a colorist who calls it your animal print.
And it is, you say it's like your roots are showing. And
yes.
It's like that, again, I'm a word nerd. But your roots are showing. Like this is the hair and the patterning that your foremothers had. You know, there's a connection there.
No, that's a play on words, as you know. That was no accident. I love puns, but roots are important. They are what ground us, you know, and that's what attach us to the earth, that we're a tree. And, you know, our roots are what takes the outer to the inner. So we should not neglect the metaphor.
Yes. All right, Melissa, we're going to pass it back to you. So tell us a little bit about physiologically what's playing into silvering hair, wrinkles, nutrient deficiencies, and how can one be proactive about that?
So some people believe that, genetics play a part in it, and they can. But, the truth is about 8% of your health is from your genetics. 92% is your choice. Grace, your choice, too, if you really want it to be. But someone who's graying early could be nutrient deficient. You'd have to test. You don't want to guess at that kind of stuff. You want to look at, your body. You want to get to the roots. You want to get to the root cause. So take a look at your omega-3 levels. Take a look at your vitamin D levels. Those can play a part in it. Your hair is protein. Are you eating enough protein? What is your source of protein? Let's make sure that we're putting that in there. 1 kilogram, for every pound of desired body weight is what you need to be eating. I'm sorry, 1 gram. I'm going to overdose you on protein with kilos here.
It's the Canadian on the stage. It's like, metric? What? Pounds?
Alexis got
Kilos?
into my roots, and I got kilos flying around now. Anyway, 1 gram of protein per 1 pound of desired weight. So, you want to make sure that you have your protein. You want to make sure that you're eating whole foods. Eat food. There is no science saying that the carnivore diet is the way to do it, that the absolute total gluten-free diet is the way to do it. If you're not a celiac, you may not need to do that. But talk with your practitioner. Don't take that for medical advice from a stage on a panel. But eat food, eat fruits, eat vegetables, eat whole grains, eat things that are good for you, that don't have chemicals, that are non-toxic.
And that could support mental health, which we're about to shift to now. So, Alexis, we know that unfortunately self-esteem, mental health is declining, especially in women. Do you feel like beauty standards in society today play a part in that?
Of course. I think self-esteem is, so many things, so many things affect self-esteem, beauty being one of them, but the world that we live in now primes us for judgment. And I think more than anything else, if we could all be a little less judgmental. It's the swiping left, the swiping right. You like it, you don't like it. That's what we're told to do nonstop. And I just feel like everybody needs to take a breath and step back and listen to each other and appreciate and see things from other people's points of view. And yeah, beauty's absolutely part of that because it's something that we see. But less judgment. We're grown-ups. I think we can do better, and I think that would go such a long way to improving people's mental health. More than lipstick, although lipstick's fun. Yeah.
Wow, that's a big subject. What was the question?
Basically, mental health, self-esteem declining, and how does beauty play that
in a
role?
weird way, things have gotten so absurd and out of hand in a way that maybe we're going to have a little pendulum swing. The filtering, the selfies, the TikTok world, and, the Kardashian situation. Maybe we can look at that and go, okay, that's kind of cool. That's ridiculous. Maybe we can really just be more objective, kind to ourselves, kind to each other, but also, bring it all on. Now we have AI. It's going to take that to a whole new level. So maybe it's just so crazy we can back up from it and just see the silliness. But how we feel about the way we look affects our mental health. So again, it's a buffet of choices. So I think we should make choices that honestly make us feel good about ourselves, not buy into what somebody is selling us is what we need to do, because then we will never stop doing it. It's a rabbit hole.
And I think we're seeing that shift in exercise and fitness trends also, where people are getting away from this, kind of killer workout mode and just what makes me feel good when I move. So I agree. We're going to get ready for Q&A in just a minute, so I hope everyone is preparing some fabulous questions for our panel. The film touches on intergenerational influence, so I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how you feel beauty, trauma, and healing is passed on through the generations. That's to everyone.
Well, I have to say, Max Fryman, myself, my co-director and video editor, we sat through probably 16 hours of people's self-recorded stuff. And the family mother-daughter thing was just so obvious to me that I didn't even notice it. It's just like, I didn't even notice it because it's so ingrained in my own nervous system. And it was Max, this young man with dark hair, who saw the pattern and brought it forth as a theme in the film. So it's so endemic and it's so influential, the things we say, the things we don't say, but the things we get like right in our breast milk or our formula, depending on what our mother was like projecting onto us. And I know that for sure. My mother, there's one of my victims right over there. She's probably gonna, tell her shrink about me. But, it's there. We have to be very mindful the best we can.
Intergenerational. Okay, so I touched on this already. I really believe if you can see it, you can be it. I was fortunate to have a mom who let her hair silver naturally, and she was a great role model. Not everybody has that, but what we do have is we do have the social media, and I think that's really playing into why there's such a large movement of women who are deciding to ditch the dye, because they can see it, and they haven't been able to necessarily before because they're either in a small town or their families. How many of you have heard this? Some women are like, they're gonna bury me a blonde. Have you heard this? Yeah. And that's something that's really held dear to a lot of women, and they pass that down to their children. And what does that say? What does that say? It's not trauma. I feel like trauma is a really hard word on that. But I think there's like an opportunity to influence in a positive way.
Absolutely. Well, with all of your expertise up here on the stage, I'm wondering if you have any tips, practical tips that you can leave our audience before we shift to questions that maybe they can take away with them to level up their own health and wellness routine in a holistic way.
I would say to all the women, just love where you are, like where you are in life, where you are in your age, and then if you do happen to have silvering hair, like love your hair, treat it well, and honestly, it's how well you treat your body and how well you treat your scalp, and that's going to grow your most beautiful hair. That's it. It's my tip.
Well, for me, I just try to stay kind of curious, and I really know I have to live in this body right here. So I really think about my choices, and they're not all perfect, but I choose them. I don't have them chosen for me. And as I continue to stay curious, just meeting Melissa, I realized my supplements were not so good. So, it's a kind of autonomy. There are things now that we can do, we can own ourselves. We don't have to go to a doctor who gives us 5 minutes of their time and really is not necessarily up on the things we're interested in. So I'm getting an 80-page report on my DNA and how my metabolism works, because it's different from yours and yours. So thank you. I can't wait for the report. So that's what I do. I stay curious, I try to stay informed, and I make good choices when I can.
And my tip of the day would be to pick one thing. If you do this overall evaluation and you decide that, you have these 17 things that you'd like to change, these are the things you'd like to change about yourself and your routine and your food and whatever, just pick one. Do that for the next month. See how you feel. Then pick another one. And you just keep adding on, and you're just gentle with yourself. You didn't get this way, whether it's your hair or your body or your health, whatever it is, you didn't get that way overnight. The body does not just decide to quit one day like that. It's cause and effect. So look at the cause, and then you can change the effect.
Yes, those 1% changes add up over time. They really do. All right, well, with that, thank you for the panel discussion, and we will shift to audience questions. So if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand, and we'll call on you, and then I'll repeat the question for our virtual audience out there. Any questions? Yes. Yes.
This is for Elise. What was your very biggest surprise making the film?
So the question is, Elise, what was your very biggest surprise in making the film?
There were a lot of surprises. There really was. Well, the one thing I did mention was how young so many women first see their silver hair. And also how their hair story over the course of their lives told the story of their lives. How they saw themselves as a little kid. And also, I knew this personally, but how much time, energy, struggle, and mental health gets caught up in our hair and what we're supposed to think we're supposed to do with it, instead of making it easy. We make it hard for ourselves. The curly people want to be straight. The straight people want to be curly. The blondes like to be red. It never ends. So.
Melissa, Alexis, any surprises for you in the film?
I can't say that I was surprised. I have to think maybe validated was probably what I felt more than surprised. I see ladies come in and out of the office so I'm exposed to that frequently. But it was just a beautiful validation that it's time to just stop this hustle culture, relax, appreciate where you are and appreciate who you are and the stage of life that you're in. It's all okay.
Absolutely. Great soundbite there. Any other questions out there? Yes. So the question is about, does this also pertain, the silvering movement, to men? Are men included in this? Is this really an issue pertaining to women? Is there possibly a second film coming out that may have to do with men? But where do men fit into this
At the moment,
picture?
there is no second film. This one was, a lot. This is going to sound terrible, but I think women have suffered tremendously because of the male gaze and the male attitude around how they should look. So I don't have any energy to worry about them, honestly. And it doesn't mean that I don't, know so many wonderful men, including my dark-haired husband. But no, they're on their own. They're on their own. But yes, men are starting to think they can't be silver. It's just on the fringe. But it's only because there's a market and the beauty industry wants to sell them stuff too.
I just wanted to jump in because there's a huge conversation being had right now about ageism in the workplace, and that's separate from this, but it's also tied into it. Like everything intermeshes. And I think we all have to also consider with health that longevity is a thing. Like women and men are going to be working in the workforce longer. We're expected to live longer. And it's like, what are we going to do with all that time? And what do we want to pay attention to? And it's tricky. It's really tricky. But I think it's kind of on us. And the next generation that's coming up behind us to kind of lay the foundations to make it easier for the next generations coming up. And that's such a huge conversation that's being had right now, is this ageism in the workplace. And silvering hair is part of that.
Yeah. The thing about ageism and silver hair for women, it's not going to stop until enough women are running around with silver hair going, here I am. That's when it changes, when you see enough of it, and they're everywhere.
But I would say the health components that we spoke about would, I believe, be the same for men. So that piece of the conversation, I think, is really relevant and universal. Yes. Excellent question. So they're asking how to go about sharing the film with others.
Well, there's a number of ways. On your seat, there's a link for anybody who wants to watch the film, online. But I own it, so I can do what I want. So if there are other groups that want to screen it, I'm in.
And in our post-event communication, we'll be sending out the link as well. So please feel free to share. Yes. Very interesting question. So that's a question about silvering, but through dye. So women who are maybe in their 20s, 30s, who are actually dyeing their hair to be silver.
Are they aspiring up?
Yeah, she's having fun. She sees silver as something beautiful. And so she's expressing herself by making it silver the way she makes it blue. So she's not doing that because she's hiding or because she feels bad about herself. She's doing it because she is showing up.
And I think she knows that it sets her apart.
Well,
Her face and silver hair.
I think, yes, over here.
Oh, that's fun. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the question was about if the film is promoting silvering, which is beautiful, then why are there products that are maybe supporting that process?
Thank you, Dane. So the products that we have developed at Silvering Beauty are products that help women love their hair. So very, very, very much understand, the challenge of eyebrows, the challenge of thinning hair, of the texture of silvers. but also that women still want to play. You know, just like you were saying, you know, this woman, she'll go back to blue and then silver. And then once you stop dyeing your hair, like, you don't do that anymore. So it's like, where's your fun? You know, there's some temporary dyes and there's some fun there. But what we have some optical fillers, filling powder that lets you, one, amplify the hair to make it look a little bit thicker. But we also, you know, show that you can use the darker powder. It's called Borderline. You can use the darker powder to kind of like, this sounds so ridiculous, but to give the look of roots, you know, so you can add some dimension to your hair. And it sounds silly, but it's fun, and women like to have fun with their hair, and it's a chemical-free way of doing it. My pleasure. We'll talk.
I've created a monster, I want you to know. So this is my friend Dane, and I met her in a chocolate shop, and she was sitting there, and I was like, oh my God, she's gorgeous. And so I told her, you know, you could model. And she said, I always wanted to model. Meanwhile, she's an accountant. But anyway, we launched her modeling career, and she just did a campaign for NARS. So anyway, now she wants products just for her.
Yes, please. Yes, please. That's so great. And I think this is it. The more women that we see in beautiful places, like, the more younger women will see that it's a beautiful choice. Like, it's an option. It's an option, and it's a valid one. Thank you.
Yes, right in the front here. Thank you. So the question is about what sort of conversations should parents or could parents be having with their kids who might be noticing at an early age that they have silvering hairs?
Well, I think for one thing, it would be easy enough when you have a little kid to point out some beautiful silver hair and say, look at their beautiful silver hair. So they start to just see it for what it is. And so whenever they discover their first silver, it could be a celebration that you're growing up and you're going to have more choices about how you live your life. You know, it's the spin you put on anything with little kids that allow them to embrace something with positivity rather than, you know, dread and loathing.
All right, I think we have time for one last question right here.
Well, how can I keep it simple? Like, I don't want to put this on my hair because it's cancerous.
So the question, the question is, what does one tell their children who may be sort of badgering them that they look older and maybe they should dye their hair? And so if you have any tips on what those conversations could look like to help educate a child, because she was saying she feels young on the inside, but maybe doesn't feel like that's reflecting on the outside, at least in the perception of the child.
Oh, I was going to say show her the documentary. And I think there's an opportunity there. My partner, he's a high school teacher. Hi, Pete. And he always talks about these teachable moments. You know, when something comes up and it's like, oh, take a step back and have a consideration and be like, what do you want to say? And be honest. My kid, I was an older parent as well, and his friends would think that I'm his grandmother. And I was just like, I'm not. Stop. But you should show them the other social media. There are so many silver-haired influencers out there, and show them. Just look, we're everywhere. And a little bit of education goes a long way. It is, like you said, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to talk about, you know, when do people start to silver? What is it? And then just show them the documentary.
Exactly. Well, thank you for that. Let's have one more question here, and then we'll. Thank you for that. So #Young and Silver. We'll put that in the show notes. And no, I love that, choosing your own narrative. So with that, Melissa, Elise, Alexis, thank you so much for spending time with us this evening. This is incredible. and feel free to come say hi. And thank you, everyone. Stay well.